If you've been around this channel for any length of time, you probably already know I'm a pretty big LUMIX fanboy. I've been shooting on their cameras since 2016, and now while I own and use a ton of different LUMIX cameras and equipment, the one that stands out the most to me is the S5iiX. And even now, almost 2 years later in 2025, it still feels brand new. And also a quick thank you for Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. A little bit more about them later. So when I first got introduced to the S5iiX, it was actually from a micro four thirds shooter's perspective. I was shooting on the G7, went to the G9, and then I owned 2 GH6s, made tons of different content about them. And then around February 2023, LUMIX reached out to saying that they want to start working with me, partnering up with my channel and supporting me however they can. Later that year in May, they sent me the S5iiX for a loaner, and that was my first time getting to test out a full frame LUMIX camera. And let's just say I was impressed. Not only, of course, because this is one of the first cameras being introduced with the phase detect autofocus technology at the time, but also the fact that it was so much easier to get better looking images with less material. And what I mean by that in all terms is really basically the bokeh on full frame and getting a depth of the field was much easier and cheaper in terms of lenses than a micro four thirds camera. Yes, you can get similar equivalents on micro four thirds glass, or you could speed boost, but that ends up costing more money than some of the cheaper alternative lenses at the time. I ended up returning that camera, and then they sent to me out another camera that I did get to keep personally because I was part of something called the Shutter Showdown. And I was still learning all the settings at this time. My color grading vlog was still new to me. I was pretty bad at color grading. And so I was just learning a ton of different information about that camera. Now flash forward to the April firmware update at NAB 2024. This is when LUMIX introduced some of the best features that I personally absolutely love on the S5iiX, and that really made a huge difference on what you were getting with the camera. And it was kind of cool. If you already own the S5iiX, a firmware update comes out and you get something that feels completely brand new in that sense. There's things from the electronic stabilization, being able to turn it on standard and high. You had your new autofocus settings with the car and the motorcycle. You have your frame.io camera to cloud connections. You are able to record proxies. They introduced the real-time LUT functionality and being able to just use that onto your different settings. There was a ton of different innovation and technology, and again, not at an additional cost. It was a free firmware update, which made you feel like I just got my camera boosted and upgraded. Meanwhile, other camera companies, you might have to be paying for that, or might have to switch up or upgrade to another newer model and camera body. While the S5iiX was already starting to feel brand new at this point, with a firmware update, you can make your videos feel fresh with today's sponsor, Storyblocks. So with Storyblocks, you can get unlimited downloads of high quality media at one predictable subscription price. Basically meaning you're not paying any extra fees for multiple different downloads. For myself, when I have a client and we're shooting a testimonial video and we just don't have the budget to go film a bunch of different B-roll to put over the talking head, that is where it's essential to have a brand like Storyblocks. Or when you want to mix up your YouTube videos and having film burns, different type of transitions, static graphics, different title effects, that is where it really comes in handy. So this actually really streamlines the whole process from start to finish for your videos. You can just simply drag and drop the transitions, the titles and graphics, and edit them how you please inside your editing platform. So if you're interested in getting stock media or transitions, templates, and graphics for a one set price, head over to storyblocks.com/MatthewDangyou, or you can just click that link in the description. And again, thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Now there's 2 more firmware updates. One was major and one was kind of meh, but there's really one final reason apart from the firmware that the S5iiX to me feels brand new, which I'll mention towards the end of the video. So you should definitely stick around and, subscribe while you're here. So the October firmware update, this was really bigger of a release for the S9 in terms of getting multiple frame markers, remote shooting, and different functions like that. I have an entire video talking about it if you're interested. But for the S5iiX, you did get LUMIX Lab functionality, which was nice, but you didn't get it to the extent that the S9 had. It was still missing the multiple frame markers, which was just added, multiple of the autofocus settings, the hybrid zoom, and different things like that. And that's where this recent January 2025 firmware update made the Streamline update, is what I like to call it. Basically, you have everything on almost all of the LUMIX cameras. From the GH7, the G9 Mark II, the S9, S5 II, and the S5 iiX, now having all of the similar and same features. For example, on the S9, now the S5 iiX has hybrid zoom. You're able to have all your autofocus settings the exact same with train and plane and multiple selection modes. You have the LUMIX app functionality, remote shooting, transferring images from the camera, multiple frame markers, and really the list kind of goes on and on about that. Apart from everything I just mentioned about firmware, the thing that really, for me, that makes the LUMIX S5 iiX almost after 2 years feeling brand new is because of the value it brings. Of course, with firmware updates, that the S5 iiX has been legitimately getting better and better with time, but also the fact that a lot more people, and especially in the YouTube market or just in general, have been taking more of a notice of what LUMIX has been doing kind of with this specific camera. Yes, the GH7 was a powerhouse of a camera, and a lot of people acknowledge that, but at the same time, at least in the YouTube world, majority of people are slowly transitioning and moving fully into the full frame market. And of course, there's a place for micro four thirds, and I still love shooting on micro four third cameras personally, but something about the S5 iiX, something about that people are consistently switching their systems, leaving Sony, leaving Canon, coming to the LUMIX S5 iiX. The fact that there's been more and more interest over time on this camera still kind of makes it feel brand new. And again, almost being 2 years at this point, back in May of 2023 when this camera was officially announced. So I guess the purpose of this video is just talking about the new phase of LUMIX cameras, and yes, I do mean the phase detect era, because they continue to support these cameras. They're continuing to make them fresh, new firmware updates, and making them better with time. I do believe that there is definitely something hopefully coming. I guess in the end, for me, the S5 iiX is a camera I continue to gravitate towards. Every time I'm going on a shoot and considering what do I want to grab, what do I want to shoot with, I continue to go again and again to the LUMIX S5 iiX because of everything I just mentioned. If you are interested about the S5 iiX, or you have any questions about that camera, just drop them down in the comments below. But if you also want to learn how to get the best autofocus from your LUMIX cameras, you can check out that video right there. YouTube recommends, something like this video right here. Till next one, guys, peace.